Good morning, everybody. My name is Menachem Creditor. It is my honor to serve as scholar in residence and rabbi for UJ Federation of New York. We bring you Torah and blessing and music and community every morning, every weekday morning at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I'm going to strum a little bit, see who's here to say good morning to everybody. Good morning, Sandy. Hi, Jerry. Dorinda. Good morning. Boker Tov. Hi, Stacy. Arlene. Debbie. All right, we're getting started. Scrolling down to see who else is here. Stacy, Paula, Adrian, Linda, Andy. See, this is a good morning already. All right, everybody, let's start with the bracha for learning, then jump right in. Good afternoon, Hindi. במצוותיו ציוונו. לעסוק בדברי תורה, לעסוק בדברי תורה, הפוך בה, הפוך בה, לעסוק בדברי Cheryl, nice to see you in Michigan. Hi, friends from Palo Alto, England, even Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Hi, Alex. It's good to be together, everyone. Hope you're all well. Yesterday we had a beautiful beginning of our conversation. Remember, Torah begins again this week. We're reading the beginning of the Torah, Breisheet, Genesis. It all starts now. And let's give ourselves the honest comfort, the raw Jewish kind of comfort, which is to say, it starts off okay for a verse or two, and then, as Torah continues and life continues, things don't go great. And that becomes very clear as we continue our journey from the garden into life. Here comes pain and birth. Here comes hard labor and harvest. All of it is profoundly part of life. And so to see all of you here and to be ready for Torah again, ready for a year together, to be with each other as, Cynthia's driving into the city, to know that we're listening to each other, to be with Sharon in Portsmouth and Kim and Anna and Janet. This is a glorious way to begin. Let's just for a moment imagine that we never were banished from the garden. There's no angel with a flaming sword keeping us from the garden. We haven't yet eaten from the tree that God put there, said, don't eat this. We're just there. I got to tell you, I don't know how to imagine that, because ultimately, the choices we make as human beings, what it is to be human, is to be curious And to be in an environment where there is a shiny tree over there, and specifically to be told don't eat it when there's no precedent. There's been no rules, there's been no crime, there's been no existence. So God puts all of these trees here and says, eat from them all, but not this one. And um, you should meet all of the animals as Adam and Eve do. And the snake seems to be able to communicate effectively with them, and the snake shows them what curiosity is like. On the one hand, we're taught to understand um, that the snake did wrong, and of course, the punishment that the snake receives at the end of that story is a punishment. But it's a really important difference between, if you're binge watching Lucifer, as many people have, seeing the way popular culture and Christian interpretation lead us to think about the birth of humanity as fallen from the garden. But what if instead we understood that we were never meant to stay in the garden in the first place? Being in a garden is sort of like, well, not a garden. Being in that garden, the Garden of Eden, is somewhat like being an infant that doesn't know from decision making, doesn't have a moral conscience, and could be told rules, but that's like putting a child in a room where there are dangerous things all around, a child meaning an infant, and expecting them to be able to navigate based on instructions. Well, that's what we were. Remember, people had just been created. Sharon, you're asking a question. Any inspiring books I can recommend as we start the Torah again? Yes. If you don't yet have Rabbi Shai Held's The Heart of Torah, it's a 2-volume collection. It is the best Torah commentary available today. And if you're looking for other great books, my friend Dara Horn is my favorite author. It's not a Torah-driven story, but her book, In the Beginning, is a gorgeous companion volume to Beginning Torah. What I wanted to share today was not only how impossible it would be for us as curious human beings who have so much history already to imagine being back in the Garden of Eden. We can't. We just can't imagine it. Because the act of imagining something is already so far away from how we were as these newly created humans in the garden. If I can imagine something different than where I am, I've already transcended the limitations of being in the garden. Because when we were in the garden, we didn't have imaginations. Just think about that. The imaginative process, what it is to envision a world beyond the world we see, that's not what the garden was. And in fact, the angels who are placed there with the flaming, twirling swords, and we were sent east of Eden, all right? Think about that book. Who wants to go back there? Of course, in some fantasy, we go back to a world that was perfect. But in that world, you and I are not who we are. Our children never would have been born. We never would have a relationship with the earth. We wouldn't know what it is to earn anything. We wouldn't know what it is to apologize or forgive or make peace or pray for healing. It is so important for us to realize what a gift it is to have curiosity. Because only with curiosity and facing the world as it is, which is, for most of us, the world that birthed the Torah too. We're in a world that is far from perfect, and only because we have an imagination are we motivated enough to do something for it. Gershom Shalom, who was a phenomenal mind, the architect of the modern study of Jewish mysticism. The only reason that most of us had ever studied Kabbalah is because he made it more accessible. He once said that a mystic is someone who has an intimation, has a vision of the world as it ought to be, is in deep pain because the world is far from how it ought to be, and commits themselves towards bringing this world 1 inch closer to the world as it ought to be, knowing we won't make it. Are you worried? I am. Look at our world. How could we not be worried? If we're not worried, we're not paying attention. If you're in America, not everyone on our call right now is in America, but America is going through really rough times right now. The whole world is. But in 21 days, there's an election, and the intensity in the air is palpable. Can you envision a world, a country, a moment, better than the one that we're in? If, if we need the reminder, this is the week. If you need to be reminded that the vision of the world as it could be is only in our wheelbarrow, it's only in our capacity to imagine that world, because we also know what loss is. The loss of innocence, the loss of our infancy. We were infants in the garden. In fact, there's a great midrash that says, what was the fruit of the tree of knowledge? And in Christian iconography, it's an apple. But the Torah never says what fruit it is. There's no mention of an apple. So there's a section in the Talmud where one rabbi suggests that it was actually wheat, because only after a baby is able to eat wheat can it call out to its parents. I mean, listen to that midrash. It was wheat. And that rabbi says that wheat is called the fruit of knowledge, because at that developmental stage, when a baby can call out for their parents, for comfort, for wisdom, for support, maybe even say their names, name the other, be in a relationship, only at that point is a baby an emergent person. That's when we begin to gain knowledge. Only after we ate the fruit did we speak with God, apparently. I mean, that's not quite true. The text has a conversation between the earthling, not a man, but Adam from Adamah, the earthling, speaking with God, but only when we see our bodies, only when we see each other, only when we hide and play and worry, only then do we know what it is to be human. When you have a hint of the knowledge that you could gain, meaning I know what I don't know, or I know that I don't know things. How powerful it is to imagine that the fruit of knowledge wasn't an apple, which feels like it's part of a story with sins and falling. Actually, the fruit of knowledge is how we gained insight, how we gained sight, how we gained life, how we became people. The other suggestion, by the way, there's a machloket, there's a disagreement in the Gemara, in the Talmud, about what the fruit is. So one opinion is that it's wheat. There's another opinion that it was a fig. And think about what this might mean. The Talmud says it was a fig because with the same fruit that they didn't listen to God, they also were able to rehabilitate. They were able to do tshuva. They returned. Meaning the tree was both the source of knowledge, which theoretically we weren't meant to have, and it was the way that we protected ourselves. It's the way we became aware of ourselves. In fact, if you look at the story as the beginning of the stirrings of life, Adam and Eve hid and they covered themselves with fig leaves, but also they were suddenly curious about each other. They were curious about their bodies, about each other, about the world. And that's not a bad thing. I know that we're taught to see what happened in the Garden of Eden as a fall. But what if it wasn't a fall? What if it was an ascent? What if it was the birth of humanity? What if we're always going to be humans who make mistakes? What if we are? The question is, do we want to go back to the garden? You can't go back there. There's a flaming sword and an angel guarding the entrance back to the Garden of Eden, but that might be a metaphor for saying you never return to the womb. Once you're born, and it's glorious and painful and distressing and amazing and full of life and wonder and sadness and hope. We're not in the garden anymore. But we were never meant to stay in the garden. We were meant to be curious. That's why there was a tree. We're meant to eat from it. That's why we were told not to eat from it. Those might have been the first two people, but we know what it is to be a person. Someone says, don't look at that. That's where you look. Don't think of a crimson talus. You thought of it. Or a pink elephant. You think of it. Or a friend. Or a better world. So let's try that reverse psychology just for a second. I'll ask you to embrace the gift of curiosity that is a legitimate, gorgeous, holy part of your soul. And just for a second, I'm going to close my eyes. You're welcome to do what you would like. If you're driving, don't close your eyes. And the reverse psychology, right? Don't eat of that fruit, and don't think of this. So, don't think of a better world. Don't think of a world that is a healthier one, is a safer one, an unmasked one, an unfiltered one. Don't think of a world where curiosity leads to solutions and friendship. By saying don't, what I really mean is do. Please do. Please do. The big blessing that I want for us today, that I want today, is a reborn curiosity, an appreciation for what it is to emerge from infancy. Linda, as you said, to go from black and white to technicolor. You see the movie Pleasantville? This would be a good day to watch that movie. Jerry, yes, it sounds like adolescence. In some ways, we needed to break free of the womb of the garden where you can't go back and push against, right? Adolescence is really defined by muttering under your breath or pushing against boundaries and rules. But eventually we do grow up, right? And part of the way we grow up is by experiencing loss. And then when we are really blessed, we claim life with all the wisdom we've gained. Many moments, I'm sure, and I'm speaking personally about this too, we would wish not to go through those experiences that led to our wisdom. I know I'm not alone. But without all of these life lessons, how would we possibly be the human beings we are? How could we offer ourselves to the world in service and in hope? So during these days, and I know this is very American-centric for those of us who are joining our group, our community from elsewhere, I invite you to daven with us for the sake of a healed community here. 21 days is not a long time. And in those days, there will be enormous pressure and crazy headlines and all sorts of stuff. But just for a second, let's imagine it could be better than we expect because we planned well. If you are registered, awesome. If not registered, today. If you have a plan for voting, awesome. If not, plan today. Because that makes a big difference too. We can't go back to the garden, but we can continue to eat fruit and share it. May we be blessed. All right, everybody. Let's sing our way into a good day. And we'll see each other tomorrow at 9 o'clock. See you tomorrow at 9 o'clock.